Good morning. Well, morning here in southern Germany, but good morning from Germany. This is not the way I intended to make this video. I'm being overwhelmed at work right now. I'm working crazy, ridiculous hours, but I'm happy to do it because it's leading to my next promotion. So happy to do it. So what I'm going to have to do is film this video during one of my breaks. So here I am. I want to make this video. I've been wanting to make this video for the last few days, but I want to tell you about what happened in court on last Monday. That would be August 4th. I started to film the video just before I went into court, which is probably what you saw in the introduction of this video. Unfortunately, our 3-hour hearing was stretched to 5 hours, and by the end of it, I was so mentally and emotionally exhausted and hungry because I had missed breakfast and missed lunch because it ran over. I was so exhausted and had a headache that I just took the train home and went to bed. So here I am a few days later, again, overwhelmed at work, which is why it took me till today. Today's Friday. But let me tell you that court was absolutely not what I expected, and it was fascinating. I will tell you that German courts are very, very, very different from American courts, and about the only thing they had in common was that when the judge entered the room, we stood up, and when he left, we stood up. That's about where the similarities ended. There were no bailiffs. Nobody in the courthouse had guns, not even the cops that were there, downstairs in the lobby. There was no clerk of the court. It was just totally different. The judge did all his own paperwork completely. The judge was a lot younger than I expected. I wouldn't be surprised if he was maybe 35 years old. But that's one of the key differences between America and the United States. In the United States, judges run for election, and they, I'm talking about at state level. They run for election, and based on really on their political party is how they get elected. Here in Germany, it doesn't work like that at all. They don't give a damn about your political perspective. Are you a good judge? Are you fantastic at the law, or are you not? So effectively, the Bar Association here in Germany combs through all the attorneys and determine which ones are in the top 1%. And they make their candidate selections from that top 1. And then, of course, they get selected by the government and they get put into their positions. Politics has nothing whatsoever to do about it. The law is the law. And it should be like that in the United States. The law is the law, and your political party should have nothing to do with how you interpret the law. Be that as it may, y'all know how it is. You just have to read some of the Supreme Court decisions to see that politics plays heavily there. I will also tell you a big difference was that they don't put people under oath. Here in Germany, you're expected to tell the truth. So what's the point in putting somebody under oath? If somebody's going to lie, they're going to lie whether they're under oath or not. So they don't do that here. There was another big, another thing that's different here is the judges do their own research. They do their own homework. In the United States, the judge is really only allowed to consider, and I apologize if you can hear that truck behind me. It's not that loud, but I'm starting to hear it. In the United States, judges are really only allowed to consider evidence that is presented to them by either or both parties. And the judge will make a ruling only on that information. Here in Europe, very different. Judges are allowed and expected to do their own homework. That was the number one thing that surprised me, because when this judge walked in the room, he knew more about my case than I ever would have believed possible. And I mean, this guy did his homework maybe as much as my attorney did, maybe even more, although that's debatable. This judge had already gone and reviewed Florida's involuntary civil commitment laws, including American court decisions on it and European court decisions. So he already knew that I had been civilly committed before, being released by a jury. He also was aware that European courts have already found that involuntary civil commitment is a violation of human rights. So in his mind, my human rights have already been violated in the United States based on European court decisions. So he knew that to return me to the U.S., if I am in danger of being civilly detained again, then he's not going to allow my return. He made that crystal clear. So he also went back and reviewed every appeal in my criminal case, and I mean pulled them off the websites. Now, I'm going to go into greater detail in another video, in my next video, probably when I take my lunch break today. And I want to explain to you exactly where his mind was at and what his focus was on. Because this guy, this attorney, well, the attorneys, yes, but this lawyer, I still said it, this judge was absolutely on the ball. Now, something interesting that happened, they gave me an official translator because the court proceedings have to be done in German. And my German's good. It's not that great. But something interesting that happened. So the judge comes in, first thing, he sits down and he says to me through the interpreter that his English is not very good, so he's going to have to use a translator to make sure there's no misunderstandings. So he asked me, how good is your German? And I said, ich habe in Deutschland seit 19 oder 20 Monaten gewohnt und arbeitet und mein Deutsch ist nicht perfekt, aber ich glaube, dass ich große Fortschritt in diesem Zeitraum gemacht habe. And he laughed. And so he says, okay. So he told me again that his English wasn't very good, but I realized that the first question he asked me through my interpreter, as soon as I began to answer in English, he began to write. And he was writing before my interpreter even began to interpret. So that's when I realized that his English was a darn sight better than he said it was. And actually, at the end of the court proceedings, he and I had a chance to just chat, and his English was fantastic. He didn't need an interpreter, but I understand for legal reasons it had to be. Now, I just said that the judge was writing down what I said. That is another key difference between the United States and Europe, or at least Germany. There is no court stenographer. There is no audio-visual recording. Everything a witness says is recorded by hand. Don't know why that is. I'm going to try to get an answer to that. I don't know why that is, but that's the way it was. Everything anybody had to say in court was recorded by hand. And I'll say this too, that in the United States, when you have a long, especially when it's a lengthy court hearing and there's going to be a written opinion by the judge, you often have a 6 month to a year wait to get that written opinion. Here in Germany, because the judge had already done his own research and had a darn good idea of how he basically was going to go with the case, unless, there was a surprise in the courtroom, he's already done his homework. So as I understand it, when we're done with the hearings, he's going to issue a ruling fairly quickly, within 2 to 4 weeks. And let me say this also. I told you that we had a 3-hour hearing that was stretched to 5, and we still didn't have enough time. So the judge has told the 2 attorneys that he wants briefs on 2 particular questions, which I'll share with you in just a second, and that we will resume court in September and we'll have a final hearing, after which he'll give his ruling. Now, a judge is not going to tell you how he's leaning one way or the other in court. That's not professional. It's not what he's going to do. And so what you try to do is you try to get an understanding of where his mind is at based on the questions that he asks. And that's the reason I am more hopeful today than when I was before the hearing. Because at the end of the hearing, he told the attorneys that he wanted answers to 2 questions. Number 1, if I am returned to the United States, would I be potentially incarcerated again under Florida's involuntary civil commitment law? We already know the answer is yes. The second question was, if I am returned to the United States, is there any of the 50 states that I could go where the Florida registry would not violate my human rights? Because he believes, he made it crystal clear, he believes that the Florida sex offender registry violates my right to privacy, which that's an issue I absolutely am going to address in another video. Again, I'm going to do it today during my lunch break, because that turned into one of the most important issues in court, and I wouldn't have believed it. Because as an American, I don't really think that much about right to privacy, because in the U.S. you really don't have much of a right to privacy, and right to privacy is not written in the Constitution. That is not in the Constitution. Whereas under German law and international human rights law, right to privacy absolutely is guaranteed, and they take it dead serious over here. So basically what they're saying is, at the end of your prison sentence, that should be it. Your sentence should be over, the penalty should be over, and you should be allowed to go on with your life and take a meaningful part in the cultural life of your community. Clearly, if you're on the Florida sex offender registry and everything is publicized for the rest of your life, there is no chance of being able to reintegrate into the community. And he was bothered by that, and he wants to know, are there any of the 50 states that I could go to where the Florida register would not affect me? Now, of course, again, the answer is, of course, it's going to affect me, because the Florida registry is for life. So those are the 2 important questions that he's after. So that's basically in a nutshell what happened. We're going back in September for a final hearing, and then we're going to get a ruling. But based on the 2 questions he asked, and we already know the answers to them, I think I stand a fantastic chance of winning. I am so accustomed in the United States for the court to be stacked against me, because in the United States, if you're not representing the government, or if you don't have a whole lot of money, you're powerless in court. The courts are going to rule against you, and good luck on appeal trying to fix it. But here in Germany, when they say that politics doesn't play a part in the ruling, and when they say justice is for everybody, boy, they mean it. Boy, they mean it. I felt, whether I'm granted or denied, whether my asylum is given to me or I'm asked to leave the EU, either way, I'm going to look you straight in the eye, as I'm doing right now, and tell you I got a fair hearing. I absolutely got a fair hearing. So we'll see what happens. So I'm going to go, I'm at work, so I got to go back downstairs and get to work, do my job. But at lunch break today, I'm going to make at least 2 more videos because I want to address some issues. So hopefully you'll join me then. And until then, it's a gorgeous morning here in Germany, which means most of you are probably still sleeping. But I hope you sleep well and have a great morning. So until next time, cheers.